Cole, I think we're live. Can you hear me, Cole?
I can.
Look at that. I think we're live. No, maybe we're not. I don't know what's going on here. It will not go live.
It says we're live on StreamYard. Let's see if we are live on YouTube. Oh, we are.
We are?
We are good to go.
Oh, there you go. It finally updated on my screen. Hey, everyone. Sorry about that. This is our first effort to use StreamYard to go live on YouTube. We're going to try to incorporate Twitter into it in the future. A lot of bells and whistles to add. We'd ideally like to be able to incorporate a Twitter space into this ability to go live, but that seems to be beyond the realm of technology right now because StreamYard and Twitter are beefing. I don't know what they're doing. This is a special edition of the GoPowercat podcast, GoPowercat Live. We're toying with the idea of doing this daily in the future. And to be blunt, a lot of that will rely on my ability to be healthy. So we'll see how that all plays out. But Cole Carmody, Tim Fitzgerald, we're going to take some of the questions from Wabash Station. We just posted the PowerCat podcast. It just went live at GoPowercat. And we had us both here, and we decided, let's play with this. Let's see if we can make it work, which is not that challenging. But as you can see, we're doing some more bells and whistles with the backgrounding, and looks like I need to do some other stuff. It appears we lost our main background. But we'll use this as an experiment while taking some of those questions from Wabash Station that we did not have into the PowerCat podcast. Cole, talk for a little bit so I can hop on over to the Twitter machine to see if we are indeed live over there, which I don't think we are. I don't know why.
Well, we talked about it on the podcast, but there were some really good questions this week from Wabash Station, so shout out to you guys. There is a lot of stuff to talk about, obviously, with K-State in the Sweet 16, and Fitz and I were kind of discussing this. Are we going to be able to be long enough on the podcast with just us two? And we were. So there's more to discuss. There's plenty of good questions. Fitz, as soon as you're ready, we can hop into that. Unless you have any remarks, as long as we are smooth sailing on the interwebs, which I think would be a good
that's
thing.
The question here. Trying to get to the top here. Profile. Okay. We're live on Twitter. I'll be darned. I'm smarter than I thought I was. Here's your questions from Wabash Station. Our subscribers at GoPowercat get to ask the questions. We will answer them. And also, if you're not a subscriber, 50% off a subscription right now at GoPowercat. Make sure you go check that out with all 5 of our viewers or whatever we're at right now. Let's go.
First question from the Dot 2. He said, Tang has a little aggression in him, doesn't he? I love how he answers questions by defending his dudes, K-State's traditions, the fans, the travel, etc. Thoughts?
Yeah, he does. It's one of those things. Jerome is one of the nicest men I've ever been around, but he also believes in that which he believes, and he's going to fight for what he believes in. I thought his answer about, basically, are you honored to play Kentucky was spot on. I mean, folks, he bragged about his team, and really what Kentucky fans are upset about is the fact that he didn't talk about Kentucky. He didn't bow down to Kentucky. He didn't worship Kentucky. He answered the question in relevance to, his team, that he has dudes that they can play. And I have no problem. I think anyone from Kentucky that is upset about that and heard an insult in there, you need to stop and evaluate yourself, because there was no insult in there. He simply said his team was better. I didn't say Kentucky was bad or deficient. He said he had more dudes. Look at the final score. He had more dudes. The dudes played better. He outcoached John Calipari. So, he pushed back. He'll push back on false narratives in a second. Sometimes he'll misunderstand you, but he does. He pushes back. And, he mentioned earlier this season, and I love this about him. He mentioned in a press conference that he went to a coach's meeting. Anthony Winchester, one of the staff members, brought something up about the pace of play and how they used to go faster, and he got upset. But he came in the press conference, said, I came in the office the next day and said, Anthony, you were exactly right. We used to push it harder, and now we don't. So I think it's interesting. I can't find my camera on here. There it is. But if I look there, I'm fine. There we go.
Now you're addressing people in the face.
Yeah. My camera isn't lit up. Doesn't have a little dot next to it. So it's throwing me off. Okay. Next question. What do you got thoughts on that?
Oh, I was just going to say he's loyal, sometimes to a fault. I mean, that's what makes him so special, is because he cares so much about his guys. And I'm assuming this question came from that clip. It's kind of funny because when he's talking about Kentucky in that clip, there's a Kentucky fan that actually cut off the ending of that response where he said, we had more dudes today than they did, and talking about how Kentucky players won't be coming back for him. That was the clip that was kind of going viral on Twitter. At the end of the day, Jerome Tang is going to ride or die with his guys, and that's what makes him such a good coach.
Agreed.
The next question comes from HomeCats91. He says, I think Tom Izzo is a much smarter coach than John Calipari, and I expect them to come at us with something unique in their game plan. What does K-State need to focus on to be successful Thursday night?
Well, you could make the comparison that Tom Izzo is the basketball version of Bill Snyder.
And that's a good, we're going to talk about that later on.
Yeah, he doesn't take the field of competition, the court, often with level talent. He usually he doesn't play some of the recruiting games that you have to play. He gets the guys that are best for him. I think we'll see Jerome Tang do that. I think we'll see Jerome Tang recruit at a high level, but he won't just go get guys because they got stars. He wants them to fit into his environment, his locker room, which is important. And Coach Izzo understands that. They will come out and make this a defensive brawl. They'll try to cut, Marquise Noel away from getting to the basket. Operating so loosely. Calipari was trying to double team him with big men. That didn't work. He just dribbled circles around him. I think we'll see more on-ball pressure, and I think it'll be incumbent on K-State maybe to hit their open threes at a much higher level. They were dreadful from three-point range until the very ending when they hit those three in a row that opened up the game. So, man, your lighting looks fantastic, Cole.
I think it's just me.
I think it's your whatever you're doing, your Neutrogena is really working for you.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think Michigan State, with extra time, will be very well prepared. And I think this will look more like a Big 12 game. He's going to go back to the Big 12 and see, okay, what gave them problems and replicate that. He's smart enough to do that, and he will do it probably pretty well.
Well, I'll be interested to see if this turns into a rock fight, because if it turns into a rock fight, that's exactly what Michigan State wants. They are not as talented as K-State. They do not have the depth. They do not have the athletes that K-State has. Like I said, we're going to talk about that. There's a question coming up about that. But I wouldn't be surprised if Tom Izzo plays some zone against K-State. You typically play a zone when you are out-athleted. And Michigan State might be in that predicament. And K-State, let's face it, they struggle to shoot the three all tournament long, as have a lot of teams. That's kind of been something that this tournament's been about, is teams struggling from three-point range. If Michigan State plays a zone, K-State's going to have to adjust, and maybe that's something that Tom Izzo looks at. But at the end of the day, I would rather have a team like Michigan State in this round when both teams have longer to prepare, as opposed to trying to have a quick turnaround and go up against a coach like Tom Izzo, who is used to playing in those NCAA tournament games, those quick turnarounds. Now it's a level playing field. You have the same amount of time to prepare. I think any kind of worries about Jerome Tang being outcoached in this game, I think those need to be put aside, because it's a level playing field now.
I agree. And K-State has added time to prep, and they've got friends in the Big Ten. I can think of one that might be more than willing to help prepare his alma mater for what Michigan State brings. So one of the things I really have enjoyed about this coaching staff is they're not so deep into their own tendencies. This is what we do, then be damned if it doesn't work. We're going to continue to do it. We do it. They try different things. Sometimes maybe they don't adjust as quickly as maybe what fans are used to from K-State coaches, no matter the sport. But also, I think that will come with time. And I think what they do with this staff, with Rodney Perry on offense and the other coaches with defense, I was astonished, Cole, to see K-State as an underdog, even as 1 point in this game. I thought it was. Uh, I can't quite grasp that after the performance against Kentucky when they were even bigger underdog.
Mm-hmm.
But I think K-State wins this game if they come out and just play solid and don't turn the ball over. And I think they can be into the Elite Eight and, with a real chance to go to the Final Four. As I said on the podcast a couple times, keep in mind, folks, K-State's the highest seed left in the East. They should be the team favored to come out of the East at this point, but they're not.
They're the third team actually favored in this region, according to the books. Yeah, just incredible. The next question comes from K-Ned. As you alluded to a little bit earlier, Fitz, is Tom Izzo the basketball version, do way more with less version of Bill Snyder?
Yeah. He does get a little bit higher level of player. But let's be honest, in basketball, you can go out and get a couple guys with good people around you, and you can play at a really high level. K-State's a good example. They had a couple All-American level players, and they've got good players around them, but none of them are all Big 12. Even in those mentions, you can make some arguments that Desi Sills should have been Sixth Man of the Year, but I think it's easier to do more with less in basketball. That's what I'm saying, because you need less. More with less in football means you better have 10 dudes or 8 dudes. I mean, you got to have enough to not have glaring weak points on the football field, because if you do, you'll get savaged. But there's so many comparisons there, and it should be scary to K-State fans. He's incredibly efficient in the Sweet 16, which means he has time to prepare. He gets a good grasp on you and will come after you. The coaches who have beaten him in the Sweet 16, and I think it was Ryan Wallace that did that research, are all household names, basically. Add in Bill Guthridge, former K-Stater that coached at North Carolina for a while, but all name brands, pretty much name coaches. So it's going to be a steep hill for Jerome Tang and company to climb, but I think they're capable of it.
It's harder to have sustained success in football with less than it is in basketball. You can get hot in the tournament. We saw that happen with Fairleigh Dickinson, 16 seed, who shouldn't have even made the NCAA tournament bracket. They didn't win their conference tournament, but due to regulations of the team that did win it not being eligible for the NCAA tournament because it's their first year in Division I, Fairleigh Dickinson gets in. They knock off a number 1 seed. Now that coach gets the job at Iona. I guess what I'm trying to say is Tom Izzo has had those success. He has had successful teams not go very far in the tournament. He's also had not very successful teams go far in the tournament. There's a little bit of luck involved with the NCAA tournament, and it's better to be lucky than good. I get that. But Bill Snyder was consistently winning with guys that were not as talented, 1 through 22, as the teams he was going against. There have been times where Tom Izzo has had a lot of talented players on his team, and he's lost. So I think that the comparisons are there and they can be made. But again, it's just so much harder to be sustainably good in football than it is in basketball. Not taking anything away from what Tom Izzo's done. But to me, it exemplifies that if you have a really good team in basketball, anything can happen. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting game on Thursday night. And for that reason, I think if Michigan State was the 2 seed in this scenario, I think K-State would be playing with house money. But because they're the 7 seed with nothing to lose, it makes it scary. It really does.
It does. It's going to be – I got to say this. I'm glad it's the 5:40 game. I'm glad we get this thing early. Don't have to sit around and wait for it. And then just, hopefully K-State wins and K-State fans can sit back and enjoy the other games, including the other regional semifinal with Florida Atlantic and Tennessee. Look, folks, K-State has some real competition here, but there's no giant in the midst of this field that you have to climb past. So I'm hopeful for Kansas State. If they play the kind of basketball they're capable of, they will get to the Final Four.
Yep. I got another question here from Pimply Dimples, an interesting name. I don't think I've ever heard that one, Fitz. Has Quan figured out his foul situation, and how much better is K-State when he is available to play all game?
Yeah, they remarkably better. Sometimes we see that early in the second half when he comes in and he doesn't have 3 fouls, and He can get after it a little bit. His biggest issue he needs to address in the offseason is strength. He's a tall, lanky guy, so he won't carry a lot of muscle weight, but he's just got to get stronger with leverage or learn how to use it. I mean, I think Coach Tang has alluded to the fact he's actually pretty strong in the weight room, but he does get shoved around because he's so tall and lanky. It forces him maybe to reach a little bit at times, make some silly fouls. The lack of playing experience shows up in these small things. When to do things and when not to do things, when to reach, when to not reach. And for all of us who, played high school, junior high, organized basketball, he's playing on the playground. And, that's just so weird to think about because it's so outside of our culture of Kansas. This young man grew up playing on the playgrounds in New York City and not for a high school team. And then ends up at junior college, and he's just learning to play organized basketball. But yes, if he can stay out of foul trouble, he is a substantial piece of this team. He plays so high above the rim at times, he's unmatchable. That's just something K-State hasn't had in the past. You could go to games often with Kansas and just look at their length and realize what a mismatch it was. That's not the case. This is one of the things Jerome Tang went out and immediately addressed was getting more athletic length. And they're just not tall, lanky guys. They can run the floor, catch the ball, finish at the rim. Do they get out-muscled once in a while? Yeah, but they've learned their way this year good enough to bottle up Oscar Sheboy just enough to win the game, to pester him just enough, even though he had a fantastic game. Sheboy has that kind of game, you lose. But they didn't because they were tough enough. They had the dudes.
I'll give you this stat. When K-State and Nae'Qwan Tomlin are together, when Nae'Qwan Tomlin is on the floor for 33-plus minutes, K-State is undefeated. When Nae'Qwan Tomlin plays 33 minutes, K-State is undefeated. A lot of that has to do, if not all that has to do, with foul trouble.
You add in the turnovers, keeping them at 11 or under, which seems to be the magic number. I've been saying 12. That the numbers now show it's 11 or under. They did that against Kentucky. I think they were, without turnovers in the final 16 minutes or something in that game, and that was huge in the process. If this team keeps those turnovers low, and that's a question, the way Michigan State's going to come after you a little bit, then they're going to be in really good shape. It's just the MO of this group of players.
Yep. And again, I just want to go back to how important Nae'Qwan is because he played 30 minutes against Kentucky, and it felt like he was out there for a long time. So just think, if he can be on the court for 30 minutes or more, K-State's winning percentages go through the roof. And he's going to have a tough matchup with Joey Hauser of Michigan State. K-State actually saw him when he was at Marquette. They've seen the Hauser brothers before. Now it's just Joey there, but he's more kind of a stretch five. But again, just Nae'Qwan Tomlin has the athletic advantage over every single person he goes against. And if he stays out of foul trouble, this team's tough to beat.
His numbers just really jump out at you. He was 6 of 8 from the field. He had a total of 12 points. Missed both three-pointers, missed both free throws. I think those were early. 6 rebounds, 3 fouls, so he stayed out of deep foul trouble. 4 blocks and 2 steals with 1 turnover. I mean, that's when he puts up those kind of numbers, K-State's going to win because the 6 of 8 means he's dunking.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty high percentage shot. He missed 2 3-pointers. He was 6 of 6 inside the circle. So dunk ball. That's my coaching advice.
Yep.
That's mine.
Yep. Well, should we do one more question, Fitz?
Let's do one more and then cut it off as we just kind of a test experiment here.
Sounds good. The last question comes from Dinland0809. He says, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we won't have another one of these. He's talking about a podcast before the potential Elite Eight game. Can you break down or look ahead to the region as a whole? And he says, and he lives in Houston. So if K-State makes the Final Four, the party is at his place.
Well, we're all showing up. Everyone from K-State will be at your house.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at the bracket here. Let me find. So you lost Purdue and Memphis off the top of this bracket. I didn't like it matchup either way. Purdue because of the size in the middle, Memphis because athleticism reminded me of TCU. But they played like TCU and lost.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had Duke lose, and Tennessee as the 4 seed is the best team coming out of there. I'm still not sold on Tennessee, although they looked pretty good in that second round game against Duke. They just haven't been the same since some injuries set in. So, let's be honest, Florida Atlantic doesn't scare anyone. They had to win games to get here. I listened to some of that game with Fairleigh Dickinson when I was coming back from my TV show. They struggled. They finally opened it up later in the second half after trailing in the second half. So I think it'll be Tennessee. I think you make some comparisons between Tennessee and Michigan State. And I haven't broken down systems and all that, but veteran coaches that have been there know how to coach, know how to X and O. So I think it is a very interesting matchup for K-State if they would get past Michigan State to see Tennessee. But you just never know. If they get past Michigan State, Florida Atlantic might be the team they see. That's kind of how the bracket's gone when K-State goes to the Elite Eight, right? You get past Xavier and then you get Butler, you're going to win, right? No, you don't. You get past Kentucky, you get Illinois, Loyola, Chicago, you should win that, and they don't. So it doesn't matter who they play. They've been the higher seed in these games in the past, and they haven't gotten past them. So let's see if they get past Michigan State, and let's see if Tennessee's awaiting. It's a good opponent, but I won't be shocked if somehow it's Florida Atlantic. It's just how the tournament's going nowadays.
Tennessee does not impress me that much. I've watched them multiple times, and without Zakai Ziegler, they're just not the same team. Duke was bound to lose. This is a team that had been extremely hot, not very good in the beginning to middle part of the season. They got really hot. They ran out of that energy, and Tennessee took advantage of it. I think this is if K-State could pick a region to be in with the three other teams, you would pick this region if you're K-State. And they have a great opportunity, and they're going to be wearing white all weekend, which is cool. Who would have thought before the season started that K-State could potentially wear white all the way until the Final Four? It's pretty awesome.
I wouldn't mind a little lavender.
Well, let's talk about that. Do they break the streak of the script Wildcat jerseys? They're 2-0 in the tournament. Or do they wear the original whites, which I don't know if you know this or not, Fitz. They're actually undefeated in those jerseys.
Did they wear the script against in the opener too?
They did.
I thought they wore the original whites. Shows how much I pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, technically the lavenders are a road color. I don't understand that because the dark grays can be a home color. It doesn't make sense to me. I think Baylor wore their grays in their game. Well, I don't know. K-State and alternative uniforms in big games doesn't have a good track record, but I also am smart enough to understand it has nothing to do with it. So we'll see. We'll see what they do. This is a great opportunity for the brand, not just of K-State basketball, but of Kansas State University and everything going on, in these times of realignment. I wouldn't mind rolling the Lavenders out and saying, you know what, this is who we are. We're the Lavender School. And get in front of that as we've seen other schools now kind of move to lavender a little bit. Own the lavender, baby. That's my motto. Cole, well, folks, drop us any comments on what you liked, didn't like, what you need corrected on this. This was really a test for us. We will do a lot more of this in the future as we access our ability to use StreamYard in this manner. We hope you enjoyed it. I hope to do this with Ryan Gilbert in the next few days from New York City, if he can, stop eating hot dogs on the corner of the street. Find time for us lowly people here in the Little Apple. He's big time now. Big time. Go check out the podcast. It's up at GoPowercat. Lots of coverage at GoPowercat. 50% off subscription right now to celebrate the Sweet 16. We got so much going on. We hope you'll join our incredible message board community. They're wonderful people. Not a lot of bickering, not a lot of hostility. Just a great community of great K-State fans. So that's it for this live. We appreciate it very much. Now I got to try to figure out how to end this podcast off of this computer, not this computer or this phone that I have going. Here we go. Let's see if it works. That worked.